Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 1st, 2014, and we are back online for a live show. It's been a while, so feeling a little rusty and crusty this morning, but I think we'll make it through it. Wanted to get everyone up to date on a few things. So to start out with, just some things to keep your eyes open for, coming up over the next few days. I know last night there were reports of tornadoes in Minnesota, that damaged up to 3 farms. Luckily no one died, in the aftermath of it. So thankful for that. But over the next, probably until Friday, they're calling for some severe thunderstorms, which could include tornadoes again. It's like we went straight from snow to hell with tornadoes. But anywhere from Texas, Louisiana, on up into Iowa, all the way up into Indiana, southern Indiana, and even over into parts of Ohio, down into Tennessee. That area right there, you are, more than likely to see some kind of rough weather, let's call it, over the next few days. So it's something to always keep track of. It's nice to get updates online, but sometimes people have lives outside of Facebook. So don't always rely on that. Use your own judgment. Keep your eyes on the skies. Listen to your local weather reports. I know last year we had reports even of the emergency weather radios being taken down offline. So always know what's ahead and prepare accordingly. Be a good time to go through some kind of tornado preparedness with your family, or know what you're going to do. Put a plan together. It's always best to have a plan and work the plan. That way there's no surprises and everybody knows what the other person is going to do. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Along with the weather, I know we've been following it depends on where you're at in your life for preparedness, let's say. There's been some interesting earthquakes, let's say, that's been going on over the last week or so. Actually, for a lot longer if you follow that kind of stuff. But it really got a lot of people's attention over the last few days. We had, depending on which monitoring service that you follow, a good-sized earthquake in Los Angeles, upwards of 5.1, that has created a lot of damage there. I know we post these things on our Facebook page a lot, and depending on, you got people in California that just laugh it off and say, oh, it's no big deal, we didn't feel a thing, which is great for them, but that being said, if we had something like that here in Indy, it would create a panic like you can't imagine. But also, I don't post those things just to post them. A lot of us follow the trends on what's going on with the earth around us. It's significant when you're following fault lines and things like that to see movement. So along with what's going on in California, Oklahoma has just been rattling quite extensively lately, whether it's fracking or not. They've had quite a bit of earthquake swarms there. And then a couple days ago, Yellowstone increased in speed and intensity of earthquakes, which was, I think, what really set people off, was to see that going on. So just keep an eye on it. Make sure that you're always prepared for something like that. If laughingly, if Yellowstone ever blew up, certain parts of the country, there would be no preparations needed. It would obliterate a good portion of the central part of the country. There's no way around that. And I know a lot of people that live in that area. They love it there. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful, and they would never leave. There was a story I was reading about a guy, and when Mount St. Helens blew, he lived in a house there all of his life with his wife who had passed away, and he'd be damned if he was going to leave volcano or not. So, it's your choice. But for those of us that want to try and make it as long as we can on this earth, might be a good time to look at where you do live and what preps you do have. And we'll get into some more of that here in just a moment. But some other things, I've been following a movie that's coming out, and it is set to release this Friday in select theaters. It's a low budget film, and so it doesn't have a whole lot of backing, but there's about a dozen theaters around the country that it will be releasing in. The movie's called Goodbye World. You can track them on Facebook. They're all over my page, but if you go to Goodbye World on Facebook itself, you can get to their site and be able to see what's going on with that. It looks pretty interesting. I hope they do a great job. We had them on our After Dark show last week, and very well-spoken people. They seem to know what they're talking about. We're going to, they're releasing the movie itself on Apple and some other things, so it's not just about the movie theaters. There's other access to it. So if you get a chance, check it out, because we are going to have them back on our April 15th show, After Dark. Unfortunately, we only had 2 of the producers last week. We will have multi people on the April 15th show from the movie itself, to talk about some of the things that happened in the movie, because I think it would make a good deck of Conflicted. So, is that in the works? We'll see what happens, but, definitely an interesting movie. It looks like the premise is group of young adults growing up together, go to college, then go their separate ways, but some of them purchased a small homestead in Northern California that two of the people in the group themselves had gotten married, had a small child, quit their jobs in the secular world, and moved to this farm in Northern California to be self-sustaining. You see in the shots so far, solar panels, the permaculture, all of that going on. Well, something happens. And of course, something always happens. And to bring all of these people together. What they do get is some kind of cyber virus that sends a text message out to everyone in the world that says, basically, goodbye world. So it brings everyone together, and it's I don't know if it's like a preppy version of Red Dawn. It looks very interesting. So I'm excited to figure out how I'm going to see that. I know they're bringing it. One of the producers lives here in Indiana. So, over the course of the next 2 months, he will be visiting Indianapolis and giving us the showing. So going to put together some kind of prize package for that, to maybe bring some peeps together to get up to the IMAX downtown to be able to see that together as a group. So, quite excited. I enjoy those kind of movies that get people out there and get their minds opened and thinking and, absorbing information. It's another reason why I like a lot of the post-apocalyptic books that are out there. G. Michael Hoff's series, American, all of those guys do a great job in broadening, your knowledge base when it comes to preparedness, whether you realize it or not. One of the first books I ever read was Lights Out. And it talks about an EMP. The people that survived through this were in a suburb, a little, one of those little cul-de-sac communities, that banded together. They had their hit or misses. But they managed to, do some interesting things that might get you thinking on different ways that you could get through any kind of downgrade situation. So don't just dismiss these kind of things. I think they're great. And, there's nothing better than keeping your mind active and reading. Too many people out there are in the drone state, the sheeple state by just believing what they see on TV. And it's like they're in a blank stare all the time. Stop that. Get away from the TV. A lot of the stuff on there is just fed to you to make you react in certain ways. So, it has its uses. Don't get me wrong. But, think for yourself. You're allowed to, believe it or not. You're allowed to have your own opinion. You're allowed to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4, as opposed to Common Core, which is in our schools quite rapid right now, where 2 and 2 might equal, 7. And, but anyways, that's a whole nother show. So, opinions are yours. Get them. get your knowledge built up. It's one of the preps that can't be taken away from you, and you can take with you anywhere. Imagine that. So my peeps on my Facebook page, Walking Dead season finale on Sunday night was messed up. If you didn't get to if you guys know me at all, you know I'm a huge Walking Dead fan to the point my dog is named after Daryl Dixon. But love the show. Hugely hooked on it. And season finale on Sunday night. Don't go watch that show by yourself. If you've never watched the series before, don't do it. Go back and, start at the beginning of the season because it will make no sense, but it is messed up in the head. And the writers are, I usually can predict how a show goes. They had me on that one. So anticipating, I've heard October 9th is when the series, begins again for the new season. So we're going to be a long summer, but we'll find things to do. We got to get out there and we got to get some stuff done and we get our preps done and all of that. So, back to real fast, update. Some people have asked me how homeschooling has been going. I think I've gotten over the fear of someone coming to my house from the school district saying, "Oh my goodness, you're wrong. We're taking your child away from you. You're not allowed to do this." A lot more relaxed there and more enjoyable. I can tell you that. Has it been all, peaches and cream? Not entirely. We have discovered the co-op that, we're planning on joining in our area is looking for new leadership. So we have a bit of a void there that I'm going to try and, see if I can plug somehow. But, Sunday, it was nice over the weekend. And my son is discovering how sneaky I am because, typically when you think of school, it's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday-ish, somewhere, maybe 9 to 3. But we've been doing it basically 24/7. And my son is thoroughly enjoying it to the point this weekend, we tapped some of our maple trees out back. And actually this was a learning experience, not only for my son, but for my 20-year-old daughter too. So I got the taps and things like that. So we were walking through and, you can read about this stuff in your school books, but to go out there and actually do it, we've had this big ass tree in our backyard since we moved here. And, we have, those climbing blocks they put on climbing walls up the one side for my son because he's a bit of a monkey. So he goes out there and it's a huge tree. So, it's always been in our lives, and it was fun to see the expression on the kids' faces when they discovered that it has things that it can give us, like maple syrup, and how you go about that. So we got the holes drilled, we got the tubes in, and we got the jugs underneath, and the a little bit came out at that time. So it was in the evening when we got that done. So we all came inside, went to bed, got up the next morning, and went out to check on them probably mid-afternoon, and was just, all the jugs were already filled up. And we had 1-gallon jugs underneath there, and the kids were just completely shocked and couldn't believe that tree could give us maple syrup, something that you only think about that goes on in maybe Maine. So we got the syrup, or got the liquid out and got that put into a pot and started to pre-boil on it to evaporate all of the water out of the sap that we got gathered. And it takes hours to do this on a slow boil. So it was going on most of the day. And they just thought this was fascinating. So we did do some research on, because, what's the difference between a maple tree and an oak tree? Things like that. Maple tree has those little helicopter things that get all over the place in the spring. And oak trees, of course, have acorns. So they're like, oh, wow, that's cool. And then we went through the differences of the different kinds of maple trees there are and the benefits of having a sugar maple, which is what we have in the back. How to identify that by the leaves. I know there's a more intensive way to do that with the bark, but we use just the leaves. And, the difference, how much more sugar content is in a sugar maple as opposed to other kinds of maple trees. And then we also went in and we looked around and discovered that, geez, you could also do the same thing with walnut trees and birch trees and things like that. So it was a very enjoyable, non-stressful, learning experience, which is great. My son did have his follow-up checkup at the doctor's office, with his IBS and stuff like that. He hasn't had any problems at all with his health at all since, he's been pulled out of the public school system, to the point, not even sniffles or anything. This time of the year, he would be just one handkerchief after another blowing his nose. So, 2 thumbs up on our journey so far. Yeah, it hasn't been exactly, planned out and spectacular. We've had a few hiccups, like I said, with getting hooked up with some families so that way we can get him some social time built with, kids his own age that homeschool in our area, but we're working on it. We just have to be patient. Which brings me to, here, my lesson of the day, my prepper chick, tip of the day. So we're boiling this sap down, and it has to go down pretty far. Now we had, I think, 3 gallons that I did Sunday. So we're boiling it down, filled my 2 pots that I had to the point we had, about probably 2 inches in the bottom of the pot. I had to run over to the store, so I took the kids and everybody with me because I had to get orange juice for work, and, turned it off, went to the store, came back. It's like 10 minutes till Walking Dead comes on. So I figured, okay, well, we'll just start this boil and, we'll keep an eye on it through Walking Dead. By the time I went to bed that night, it should be completed. So I'm getting set up to watch Walking Dead. I said, Eddie turned on the stove for me and totally forgot about it until I saw smoke and smelled burnt sugar in the house. And it's like, oh my God. Because we were so engrossed in the show, totally forgot about it. Ruined it like you can't imagine. It took until, I'm sure if I walked in today into my house, it would still smell like burnt sugar. Scrubbed the hell out of the pan last night, so I hope it's not ruined, but it's a mess. Luckily we have more sap that we can boil down. But lesson learned, never, ever start your boil on your maple sap while Walking Dead is on. You will ruin it every time. So, got to pay attention to those kind of things. So we'll move on. But, yeah, horrible. So last night I was, sitting around and, checking on the news and whatnot. And I caught up finally, with my schedule. Every once in a while, I'm able to catch, Boiler Room Radio, which is on the same network, UCY.TV, that we play on here. And he's always got great information on there. So if you get a chance, I think he's on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, around 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Get on there and listen. Because last night they were talking about, this Ebola virus that's going on over in Guinea. If you don't know where Guinea is, it's off the west coast of Africa, which is the same, it shares the Atlantic Ocean with the United States. And, we've been following it on our blue page as best as we can with the limited information that's going on out there. But, we got to digging around last night and, we have, Herbal Prepper Chick that, Kat Herbal Prepper, is her website, herbalprepper.com, and got to talking to her last night, and asked her, have you heard of anything possible that's natural, that could counteract Ebola? And she's like, not really. There's nothing really out there. If you don't know what Ebola is, it will make you bleed out of every orifice that you have. It's an agonizing, painful death and not something that you would want to go through. Rate of mortality is 90% in most cases. So 9 out of 10 people that get it are going to die. It's not something that you want, out of any kind of catastrophe, some kind of disease, airborne illness. That's the thing that worries me the most. Putting my tinfoil on right now, Is this a staged test that's going on, in our day of medicine and all of that? It's hard to tell anymore with what's going on between countries out there. You educate yourself on it. You do the digging around, but I honestly will tell you that I have to question whether or not this is a staged test over there to see the reaction of this disease to be used sometime in the future someplace else. The technology that the United States, the technology that Russia, that China, that they all have when it comes to this kind of weapon is unbelievable. But how do you protect yourself against it? Digging around, there's no known cure for it at this time. Hygiene plays a big part. You want to make sure that fecal matter and things like that are well contained. I know that monkeys have been known to transport the virus. The bad thing is it takes 3 weeks sometimes to even know that you have it. Think about every human that you touch within a 3-week time span. So you can imagine, what would happen if that thing got into the United States. With our fetish for sports and gathering together and things like that. I mean, just would be unbelievable the damage it would do. And there's no known cure. Funny though that the Center for Disease Control is looking at a vaccine for it. It's one of the things that makes me question where and why this started to begin with. Going back to naturopathy and digging around a little bit, Kat did find some information pertaining to elderberry. So I'm going to be digging into that over the next few days and seeing if I can get more information. There's a couple books out there, and we have them up on our Amazon store, that are specifically relating to herbal medicine. One is called Herbal Antivirals. Both, let me see if I can scroll down here and get the full name of this. It's Natural Remedies for Emerging and Resistant Viral Infections. And it's written by, a gentleman by the name of Stephen Harrod Buhner. And that's StephenHarrodBuhner. He also writes a second book called Herbal Antibiotics. A lot of great information. Highly recommend these two books for your proper library, because it does go into a lot of information on how herbal medicines act in your body, as opposed to the stuff that you get at the doctor's office, and covers a lot of diseases out there. So I highly recommend either one of those books. But, something we're going to keep an eye on, something, that he states in the books that I found quite interesting too, and I've been yelling about it for quite a while. And yes, I'm not picking on anyone because I'm in the same boat as everyone else. We have to get ourselves healthy. When you think about it, 90% of the food in a grocery store we should not be eating. It's imperative that to be able to fight any kind of disease, you need to be as healthy as possible. Our bodies are such amazing instruments to be able to heal themselves. And we need to educate ourselves on what we need to do in order to make that happen, which comes into play the deception that the people out there are portrayed with when it comes to all of the food, if you want to even call it that they're saying is good for us. Like I said, if you actually start digging into this, 90% of the food in grocery stores is bad for you. It's not natural. It's man-made with contaminants that have longer names and more letters in them than you can even begin to pronounce. So if you can't pronounce it, it's probably a good shot that you should not be eating it. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox on that, but please take the time to educate yourself on your diet, because if you can get your body healthy, get all those contaminants out of it, allow your body to function in the way that it was made to do, you'd be surprised at all of the diseases and stuff that you can fight off. Removing simple things such as sugar and white flour from your diet, those two things alone has the ability to cut out numerous diseases. Knock on wood, this winter, we haven't had a cold. We haven't had the flu. We've been in my family pretty healthy this past winter. We've changed a few things. I've been, gone to the essential oils. We have, like I said, removed our youngest from regular public school, which I think is huge when it comes to making sure that your family stays healthy, because the kids, it was like clockwork. Anytime they went back to school in the fall, after Christmas break, after spring break, within a week of getting back into that, in my opinion, just huge cesspool of disease, of viruses, within a week of going back there, my kids would bring something home. So something to think about. Another benefit of homeschool is your lack of doctor bills. But I did notice too that there was in the news that the school system here was going to require the kids, yet again, another vaccine in order to go to school, which is just absurd. Do your research. All these vaccines being thrown at our kids are not a good thing. Are all negative? No, some of them might have their benefit, but you really need to do your research and understand that the amount of vaccines that they're requiring our children to have every year, especially those that do attend public school, is completely unnecessary. So, couple other things in the news that I want you to pay attention to. Let me get over here real fast. Yes, multitasking in the morning is not my strong suit. We will be back here tonight at 11 p.m. for our After Dark show. Should be pretty interesting. So just to flip on back, hop in the chat room and we'll go on from there. So, Russia. I know they've been in the news a lot lately. Our president, our leader-in-chief, whatever you want to call him, had made mention that he thinks that Russia is just a geographical power, that, the only power they have is where they're located at, not necessarily a world power. I totally disagree with him on that. And some things that I really want you to pay attention to. Russia is in the process of creating their own national payment system. And this hit the news, when was this? On the 27th of March. Russia will create a national payment system similar to either in Japan or China, Putin announced on Thursday, as Moscow struggles to cut its dependence on U.S.-based payment networks. These systems work in countries like Japan and China, and they work very well. At first, they work like nationals circulating in their own markets on their own territory, but for their citizens, and now they are becoming very popular, Putin said during a meeting with members of the upper house of parliament. He said the Japanese system, which began as a national one, now operates in over 200 countries. Why wouldn't we do that? We have to do this. We have to do this. and we will do this, the president said, adding that Russia's central bank is working closely with governments or creating such a system, but this could take some time. The Russian leader said Thursday Moscow regrets the decision of a number of payment systems to limit their activity in the country, adding that as a result, they will lose a very profitable market. Earlier in the day, the head of Russia's central bank, Elvira, also called for the development of a domestic card system to reduce dependence on Visa and MasterCard after U.S. sanctions led to disruptions in their services, but said Moscow has no plans to abandon the U.S.-based payment networks at this time. Russian Finance Minister Anton said in a similar statement Wednesday, Russia is not planning to stop using payment services provided by U.S.-based Visa International and MasterCard, even though a domestic credit card system is under construction. Visa and MasterCard have stopped processing retail and online payments by cardholders at several Russian banks hit by punitive sanctions levied by Washington last week in response to the reunification of Crimea with Russia. The news signaled the first impact on ordinary Russian citizens by a series of Western sanctions. President Putin mocked the move, saying he would open an account and have his salary deposited at the U.S. sanctioned bank in Russia. Putin really doesn't give a shit what Obama wants to do, and he's just sitting there laughing his ass off. And you know, it's intriguing to watch, but it's scary too at the same time when you think about the implications that it could have on us here in the U.S. You know, it would be nice if the two boys could get together and just, smack each other around. But unfortunately, anytime, dignitaries of their stature start spouting off, it's those of us, the normal citizens out there that get the most harm. These guys go into their bunkers. We don't have that option. So it's always something to watch when there's lipping off going on. Another thing to watch too, because Russia is working quite closely with China right now. This is on the EU Observer, and this was posted on the 28th also out of Berlin, Germany. Frankfurt is set to become Europe's first trading center for the Chinese currency following a deal signed Friday during the visit of the Chinese President Jinping to Germany. A similar deal with the City of London is expected on Monday. China aims at transforming their currency into a reserve currency. Country after country after country is dropping the U.S. dollar. And really, that's the only thing that holds the U.S. dollar up anymore. If you've been following the money system for a while now, you know that we are in deep trouble. And when you see all of these countries going ahead and going forward with trading money amongst themselves, with creating new currency, I was just reading about the Bitcoin the other day and how a company out of Texas is now accepting Bitcoin for the purchase of a firearm. We're screwed if the only thing that we have is the U.S. dollar. Because it's going to go down. It's going to go down fast and hard. These other countries are chipping at it little by little. And there's nothing behind it anymore. It's just printed paper. So in your prepping, if you're relying upon money in order to help you survive, you're in for a rude awakening. You need to take some of that money and change it over to barter items, to supplies. Those things is what it's going to take in order to get you to survive. I ran into an article, and I think I've talked about this one before. It was out over a year ago from a site called the Economic Collapse blog. And it's 25 things that you should do to get prepared for the coming economic collapse. Now, this was a year ago. So people have been following this for a while. So we were in a herd a year ago. You can imagine where we're at right now. So I'm going to go through these 25 things. We've got about 20 minutes, and I hope I can get through them. So number one is an emergency fund. According to this article, you should have enough to cover all of your expenses for at least 6 months. But the article does suggest and encourage you to have an emergency fund that is even larger than that. For the normal American out there, that's going to be damn near impossible, especially if you're getting started with it right now. Most Americans that I know of live paycheck to paycheck, so there is, it's going to be a cold day in hell before they're going to be able to have 6 months worth of an emergency fund set up. If you're keeping that 6 months worth of emergency fund in any kind of financial institution, be prepared that it could disappear one day. If you follow the news in Cyprus or in Greece, bank accounts were confiscated and that money was gone. So how are you keeping that monetary emergency fund safe? Number two, don't put all your eggs into one basket. In the wealth confiscation in Cyprus has taught us anything, it is that we should not put all of our eggs in one basket. If all of your money is in one single bank account, it could easily be wiped out. But if you have your money scattered around a number of different places, it will give you a little bit more security. I'm going to emphasize a little bit more security. Take the frickin' money out of the bank. Hide it under your mattress if you have to. Make sure it's in small bills. When it comes down to it, it's going to be easier to barter, to pay for things with small bills. A lot of people out there, they're not going to give you change back. So do what you have to do. Number three, keep some cash at home. This goes along with the previous point. Well, it's not wise to keep all your money at home. You do want to keep some cash on hand. If there's an extended bank holiday or a giant burst from the sun, which causes the ATM machines to go down, you want to be able to have enough cash to buy the things that your family needs. Just ask the people of Cyprus how crippling a bank holiday can be. One way to keep your cash secure at home is by storing it in a concealed safe. Yeah, think about that. Don't store it in the normal places. Don't get your ideas off the internet. Everybody else does too. So those would be the first places that people look for if they come ransack your house. Number four, get out of debt, which would be awesome to do. You don't want to be a slave to debt when the next wave of the economic collapse strikes. But how hard is it? Let's be realistic here. Probably 99% of the citizens of the United States are in debt in one way, shape, or form. I can tell you personally, it's an awesome feeling when you purchase a vehicle and you don't have a loan. Do you have to have a brand new vehicle? No, you don't. If I had a car loan at this point with a vehicle, I would probably look at getting rid of that and purchasing something a lot cheaper that I can own outright. House debt, really, there's not a way really at this point to get around that, but should that be the only debt that you carry? Credit cards, get rid of them. It can be done. I know there's probably people that's going to listen to this and think that I've lost my mind, but I have no credit cards. Don't plan on getting any. I refuse to pay somebody extra money to give me money for something. I've seen the damage that they can do to families. I've seen entire homes with families get ripped apart because I've seen a friend of mine got, and I'm not going to name names, but if somebody I know got into that cycle of using credit cards to pay off other credit cards. It was horrible for him. He damn near lost everything that he had. 5, gold and silver. I'm up in the air on this one. Don't put, like the other one said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I would much rather put stock in, beans and bullets and Band-Aids. But that's your choice. Number 6, reduce your expenses. A lot of people claim that they can't put any money towards prepping. But the truth is that we all have room to reduce our expenses. How many of you have Netflix? You can get rid of cable. Do we need it? It's just a bunch of garbage anyways. You can watch anything that you have on cable. You can find it online. There are ways to reduce your expenses. Do you drink beer? Do you smoke cigarettes? Do you really need those things? It's just that we like those things, so we don't want to get rid of them. They're not a necessity. 7, start a side business. One of the things that, we've talked about in the past is, what is your employment going to be after any kind of downgrade situation? If you're a pizza delivery guy now, they're probably not going to need you after a downgrade situation. So then what? Do you have some kind of technical skill? Do you have a skill that you could start using now? So that way you've built, all of the knowledge and the data and all of that resources that you're going to need. So that way, if there is a downgrade situation, bam, you're already doing it. Or are you just waiting for a downgrade situation to happen to begin doing that? Think about that. Do it now. Start now. Days off, weekends, whatever. You need to get moving on it. Number 8, move away from the big cities if possible. That's a lot of people to move out of big cities. Are you going to be able to survive any kind of downgrade situation in a city? Oh, there'll be people that will survive and take over. Do you want to be that person? That's your choice. I know I've said in the past, my in-laws, my mother-in-law, they're not going to leave New York City. As harsh as it is, that's going to be their coffin. But there will be people that survive a downgrade situation, barring a ground zero nuke attack. There will be people that survive in a big city. But that person is going to be extraordinary. They're going to have a lot of knowledge. Not necessarily supplies. Supplies would be great. But like I said, those can be taken from you. But this person will have to have the innate ability to know the city like none other, to know how to hide, to be a gray man, to have networking, to be physically and mentally strong, because it would be horrendous to live through any kind of downgrade situation in a large city. Not that it can't be done, but your chances are higher for survival if you lived out in the country. The farther out from a city you get, think about that, the better chances are for your survival. Number 9, store food. Yes, storing food is great, but which leads into number 10, learn how to grow your own food. One thing that I would like to throw out there, and I want you to really think about, we talk about, food storage. I utilize a company called Shelf Reliance for my preps, for my food storage. I have buckets of flour that would last 25 to 30 years. Wheat berries, any kind of dehydrated, freeze-dried food. Okay? Long-term food, as long as nothing happens to it, hey, I'm good. Short-term food, I've looked at the foods that we use every single day and put together a 6-month supply of that. So that way, when something happens, it's not an instant shock to your system to revert over to the freeze-dried, dehydrated foods. Those people with kids, Specifically, you're going to want to make sure that you do that. You know, if all your kid does is eat macaroni and cheese, you know, for them to eat dehydrated carrots is going to be a small nightmare. You know, the situation's going to be stressful enough. You don't want to cause more stress on top of that. So, what I usually do is sit down, write down everything we eat, for 3 weeks. It's 21 meals. Write out the recipes for it. Get the supplies that I would need, including the recipe itself written down, because if something happens to you, you know, what is your family going to know what to do with that stuff? So put it in a tote. You have now 3 weeks worth of food with the recipes to create this food and what to use it for. Once you get 3 weeks, you know, go to 6 weeks. Do it again. Add new recipes and keep going from there until you have minimally a 6 month supply. You know, great. The government tells us to have three days. Whoopee. You know, you watch the situations right now out there, and it's taking a lot longer than three days in order to get any kind of assistance. Do not rely upon assistance to come and save you. You are responsible for your survival and no one else. If you think about it, the people that are in jobs right now to save people could end up dead. They're going to be looking out for their own family first. It makes sense. They're human. You can't blame them. You're in third place at best. So do what you need to do now to put your own supplies together. So on top of your food storage, yes, you need to learn how to grow your own food. But something I want you to think about. Sorry, digress there for a minute. If you're planning on growing your food after a downgrade situation in your nice, pretty raised beds that you have built now, think about it. You're out there, you're working in your little garden after all hell broke loose. Somebody comes down the road. Are you a sitting duck for knowing that you have food? Yes, you are. You're putting yourself and your family in jeopardy. What I want to challenge you to do is dig into permaculture, permanent agriculture, and look at growing food now in their rules. That means you start planting fruit trees, nut trees. You start planting perennials, herbs, vegetables, whatever, depending on your climate, that look and blend right into the natural landscape. So unless they actually knew what they were looking at, they would not notice it. It's okay to plant your tomatoes in with your landscaping bushes, as opposed to planting them all in a row in your garden out back. Nobody's going to notice them as much. Another benefit to that also is if you get some kind of insect that's going to attack, let's say you have 30 tomato plants. If you break those up around your property, chances are you're not going to lose all 30 tomato plants if it gets infected with something or it gets attacked by predator, you know, some kind of insect or whatever. If you have those all planted together in one garden bed and something gets into it, your chances are you're going to lose all of those. So break them up. Think about that. Dig into it. Get the knowledge. You know, I'm just throwing it out there, but it's just something I want you to be aware that you can do. Number 11. Nobody can survive without water. Very true. 3 days. I just read a story of some guy who lived without water and food for 5 days, but you got the point. Not very long. But yes, it's great to have stored water, but how are you going to resupply that? You need to take yourself down the rabbit trail. Do you have a gutter system that can replenish with rainwater? Is there some kind of underground cistern somewhere that you can drill into? Do you have the supplies now in order to do that if there's a downgrade? Because you're not going to be able to go to the hardware store and pick up what you need. You need to have that now. Number 12, have a plan for when the grid does go down. If my son lives on the other side of town, we've sat extensively and talked about what he should do and what he is going to do if something happens. if an EMP or a solar flare or something hits, what I can rely upon him to do. You know, our plan is to all come to one central location. You should sit down and have those conversations with your family. Number 13, have blankets and warm clothing on hand. I think we've all gone through that this winter. And with the amount of power that was off, hopefully it woke a lot of people up. We do get complacent over the summertime and don't think about it until we actually need it. So always try and think ahead. 14, store personal hygiene supplies. For you ladies out there storing tampons and things like that, there are alternates for that that you need to look at. Natural sea sponges, the cups that you can get, because it's going to take a small fortune and a lot of room to supply those things. They're also, if you do, think about it, they are also multifunctional. You can use them for gunshot wounds, that kind of thing. But look at alternate forms too. But as we are seeing right now, and I mentioned earlier with the Ebola that's going on, your chances of dying from poor hygiene are much higher than dying from a gunshot wound in a downgrade situation, and you need to think about that. The disease is going to become rampant once our sewer system goes down. A lot of people don't know how to deal with that, and cleanliness is going to be next to godliness and very important. 15, store medical and medicine supplies. Stock up on vitamins. Number 17, make a list of other supplies. It's always good to put stuff down on paper because you will forget things. Number 18, don't forget the special needs of if you have small children, if you have pets, things like that. If you haven't already, look at if you have any kind of livestock. Look at alternate forms of feeding them. If you think back 100 years or more, did we have feed stores that we could go to buy rabbit pellets or dog food? No, we didn't. What did they eat then? Educate yourself. Get distance from the system now, so that way if there's a downgrade situation, if our dollar collapses, which it's showing signs every day of that happening, it's not going to be such a big jump for you to get accustomed to not having things. 19, entertainment. Without TV, video games, things like that, kids are going to go nuts. Do you have books for them? Do you have board games, table games, things like that they can utilize? It's quite impressive the amount of TV my son has stopped watching since he stopped going to public school system. And now that his mind is opening up and he's getting out there, he's getting interested in things. Number 20, self-defense. Not everyone is capable or feels comfortable with a firearm. It's one of those things we digress to when we think about self-defense, but it's not the end all. Being in shape, having some kind of martial arts such as Krav Maga. There are other forms of self-defense besides firearms. But point is, you got to do something. Have you hardened your house yet? Have you gone down that route? What's your plan? Make a plan, get a plan, work the plan. Get your ammunition while you still can. A lot of people thought that usually ammunition scares and firearm scares with lack of finding them go on after certain occurrences, usually presidential elections, things like that. But then they settle down and things return to normal. I think a lot of us can agree this has gone on too long. It's damn near hard to find 22 ammunition depending on where you live. So get it while you can, if you can. I know a lot of people are mail ordering it and paying, ridiculous prices, but at least you have it. Number 22. If you have to go, if you have to leave your house, have a plan for what you and your family will do if you are forced to leave. If you have to go, some items that you will still want to have on hand. You need a map of the area. Google Maps right now is awesome for this. Get to know your neighborhood, then go out and drive around, but use Google Maps. A compass, backpacks for every member of the family with survival supplies in it, sleeping bags, and know that there are different grades of sleeping bags. Learn this one the hard way. You want to look at the rating on the sleeping bag, because one that's rated for 30 degrees, it's going to suck when it's wintertime. I can tell you that. Warm clothing and comfortable shoes or hiking boots. One thing a lot of people forget is the shoe parts. There was a guy I know, and it was a story out of Washington, D.C. this past winter. And he obviously did not have some kind of bag in his vehicle. He got out to walk home in the middle of a blizzard. Had to have his toes cut off from frostbite because his work shoes, those nice dress shoes that you wear with suits, wasn't quite enough to hike through snow in. So some kind of comfortable, all-weather hiking boot is something that you should always have with you. Number 23. One of the long-forgotten preps, in my opinion. It's becoming more and more, so keep rolling with it. But community. You're not going to be able to do this alone. You need to have a group of like-minded people around you with different abilities to get through something like this. Not one person out there has all the knowledge that it's going to take, whether it's medical or not, there's too much to cover. So it's always good to have a group of people. Number 24, have a backup plan and be flexible. Plans fail, but you need to be ready. And number 25, keep